your favorite books to life in an all-new Fox Kids television series. Things are not always what they appear to be. On Goosebumps, premiering November 3rd on Fox Kids. Watch it with a friend.
Hello, and welcome. I'm Jazzy Jeff. So, first up, I just want to start by saying thank you for watching, of course. And this is just kind of something that just sprang up. I was able to acquire a bunch of Goosebumps Pogs. And I definitely wanted to show those off. And then I realized that I was sitting on gold, and I have these Goosebumps pictures, which I'll get to all those in a moment. So I figured, you know what? I'm just going to do a quick passion project and just talk about something that I've always wanted to talk about and just show you guys a bunch of cool stuff. I guess you could consider this a Jazzy's Thought video. Even though those are supposed to be like serious videos, but this is kind of serious, cool Goosebumps stuff that I have. And quick shout out to Colin Richards. I'm sure this video is going to get you really excited and going to amp you up quite a bit. So let's dive in. Alright, so I'm just gonna start up with the fucking pictures first because they're really cool. So I was a part of the original Goosebumps Collectors Club back in the 90s. I do still have my official card. Unfortunately, it's buried away with all my Halloween stuff. However, at some point, I will show you guys that. These I've had for years. They're really awesome. They stand up. They have this like kind of cardboard in the back. Unfortunately, they've gotten banged up over the years. They also have this cool little kind of piece of cardboard that you can hang the picture on the wall. Oh God, look at them dropping it already. The date on the back says 1997, so they're late 90s Goosebumps memorabilia. But these are really awesome because you would only have these if you were a part, or you would have only gotten these per se if you were part of the Goosebumps fan club. And I was lucky enough to have been a part of that. I wasn't able to acquire as much of these collectibles back in the day, so I'm thankful that I was able to get these. I don't have many things from when I was younger, so not only are these awesome because they're Goosebumps, but they also mean a lot more to me because it's an actual piece of memorabilia I had growing up. Of course, here we have the... Now, this is the Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, number 5. And that was illustrated by Tim Jacobus is the name on is the name there. This is also illustrated by Tim Jacobus. Hopefully I'm saying his name correctly. This is the Werewolf of Fever Swamp, issue number 14, also from 1997. And then here is the Pog, of course, Werewolf of Fever Swamp. These I just recently came across. My buddy Josh was at some thrift store, flea market thing, and acquired a bunch of Pogs. And within those Pogs, he came across the Goosebumps ones, and he was nice enough to give those to me because he knows I'm a huge fan of Goosebumps and, of course, Goosebumps paraphernalia. These are actually from 1995 by Parachute Press, and obviously number 14 on there for the 14th book. Here, illustration is by David Hendricks. This is Stay Out of the Basement, issue number 2, of course. I'm almost certain I had this. I'm pretty sure I had this book. I had almost all these books because you would get the book, you would get the picture, and then you'd get a couple other things. I don't even quite remember everything that came in the package. Like, you got a big envelope every month, and it was exciting. And I wish I would have held on to the envelope and held on to some of the other stuff. But, you know, when you're a little kid, you don't think of that. But this is probably one of my more, like, favorite pictures. Like, the Mummy one is a classic because it's got it's got the red eyes and it's, like, spooky. and like the werewolf one just like totally encapsulates, you know, the whole werewolf phenomenon, and you know, werewolf movies and how people transform into werewolves, and it's got like the clothing next to it. But there was something about Stay Out of the Basement that always just stuck with me. I could never seem to figure out, there's the Pog, by the way, I could just never seem to understand why this one has always been my favorite. It's just the angle, the way the door is drawn, that hand that's coming out of the basement. There's just so much going on. There's so much detail in this illustration. And not to take away from R.L. Stine, because he's a fantastic he's a fantastic storyteller, as well as they did a really great job transferring his books to, you know, to a television show. But there's a lot to be said about the illustration. There's a lot to be said about these drawings. You just don't see, I feel like you just really don't see illustration like this as much anymore, especially in the mainstream pop culture, because Goosebumps became a mainstream book series. So a lot more people were seeing Goosebumps and were familiar with Goosebumps, and Goosebumps were kind of slapping you across the face as a kid. And to be able to read stuff like this, especially for me, I went to Catholic school, it was a big deal, because like when the books first came out, I remember I wasn't really allowed to take them to school, and they didn't, you know, they weren't at the book sales, and it, you know, obviously with it being a religious school, you know, this kind of stuff was like too dark. As time went on, and you know, teachers found out more about Goosebumps, and the school kind of loosened up a little bit. The funny thing was, you know, they began selling these at the book fairs and the book clubs, and various you know, reading promotions, and just different, you know, library events would incorporate Goosebumps related things, or Goosebumps books would be on the list that you can order. So it was really interesting how times were changing. I felt like I've always grown up in this era where it was like we were stuck in the past, but we were slowly maturing and slowly changing. And it was definitely, you know, an interesting and crazy time to grow up in. And even now, as a young adult, you know, the world is just continuously changing from this, you know, paper pencil world to this digital world. And a lot of this stuff is getting kind of lost and left behind. So I'm really thankful that I held on to something like this. So yeah, just kind of let that sink in there for a minute. I mean, that is just some fantastic stuff. So Stay Out of the Basement, of course. You know, basements have always been creepy. Basements have always been spooky, scary. You know, great title, great idea. Fantastic all around. Obviously, I have the books, the films here too on VHS. These were sort of the longer episodes that they had done. I think they might have taken these and split them into two parts when they originally aired on Fox Kids back in the 90s. But they came out with obviously the television show, and then later on they came. I could be wrong. I think they came out with these first, and then the TV show came from these. I think they did like mini movies, and then these obviously went over really well. I think Fox Kids had special events where they showed like an hour-long segment of like Goosebumps, and you got both episodes, and then obviously they put them on tape. And then I think from there they did the actual show. But yeah, this was huge when this series came out. It was absolutely unbelievable. Not too often do books or novels make it to the movie screen and they're good, or not too often are they like justified. And you're thinking about a book that's obviously hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages, and then a film, they try and keep it around that an hour and a half to 2 hour mark. And now you look at a television show, And a television show essentially is about 20 minutes or less because they got to fit about 8 to 9 minutes worth of commercials and advertisements and stuff in there. So to be able to tell a story in under 19 or 18 minutes or less and do such a good job to the books, you got to give the television series a lot of credit. I know the later season, I think season 2 and 3 started getting a little bit cheesier, and they kind of started rushing some of the stories and changing some of the elements. But these tapes and these early seasons were like absolutely awesome. Here we got the Werewolf of Fever Swamp, of course. The tape of that as well. So there's that. Okay, moving on to the next picture. I have the Ghost Next Door, which was issue number 10. This is also illustrated by Tim Jacobus. Another really awesome picture there. Very nice, very cool, very detailed. I love the Chuck Taylors in the shot. They always had Chuck Taylors, which made me think of this Pog. Now, this Pog is Monster Blood 3, but I just thought it was appropriate to show these all together because there's just a whole lot of Chuck Taylor action going on, and I love me some Chuck Taylors for sure. But really neat, really cool, kind of silly, but still kind of eerie. Very awesome. Up next, this is Why I'm Afraid of Bees, issue number 17, of course. So there is the picture, also illustrated by Tim Jacobus. So apparently I have a lot of the illustrations that he did. And then here is the Why I'm Afraid of Bees, Goosebumps Pog, of course, by Parachute Press. And these are really nice. I've said this before about Pogs. There's been some shitty Pogs over the years. And these are very well done, very glossed, very detailed. They did a great job taking the picture, like a giant picture like this, and shrinking it down to here. And another thing I love about these giant pictures is the books themselves are actually smaller than these tapes. Like smaller than the VHS boxes. So the fact that they were able to blow up the cover and put a frame around it, and it doesn't look diminished, didn't lose any of the elements that the book cover had. That's a great achievement. That's really, really tough. Because a lot of times when you blow stuff up that's small, it can get grainy or pixelated or just look weird. But this is a fantastic picture. I mean, I remember this book. Definitely, there was some controversy at my school for sure with this book. So, a lot of teachers were doing double takes. Okay, I'm gonna save the final picture for last because that's my favorite one. But I'm gonna swing over to the Pogs and give these Pogs some love. So here I have You Can't Scare Me, of course, the Mud Monsters. The Girl Who Cried Monster, which is actually my favorite book. I don't know what it was about that novel, but it was just so well written, so well detailed. I really related to the girl in the story. I wish I could remember her name. It's been years since I read it. Used to have that. Just a really solid story. It's just solid storytelling all around. Really scary. Really kept you on edge. And then when they finally turned that episode, or turned that book into an episode, it nailed it. Like, the episode was fantastic. But that's one of my memorable stories that I remember reading for sure. Okay. Of course, we got Welcome to Horrorland. That was book number 16. That was another really good one. And then we got The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, number 20. And once again, these Pogs are from 1995. So those are really, really cool. This was another really fun episode. Piano Lessons Can Be Murder. Had elements of the Phantom of the Opera, of course. And speaking of the Phantom of the Opera, issue number 24, we have Phantom of the Auditorium. And Piano Lessons Can Be Murder was lucky number 13. So there are those. Okay, up next, this is still one I have not read, and I remember coming across it, and I just thought it was the weirdest thing. But Attack of the Mutant number 25, kind of a superhero kind of spin-off type of ordeal. Very weird, very strange. The Monster Blood books, I actually never read any of the Monster Blood books. I know I'm doing a disservice to myself. I will eventually get around to reading those. But yeah, issue number 18, Monster Blood 2. I always loved that too, the hamster. I wish I had the hamster blown up. Like, that'd be really cool. That'd be super awesome. Of course, A Night in Terror Tower. I have that on VHS tape. You know, and these tapes were just so cool. I mean, even the sticker on the tape itself looked really awesome. I always loved the Goosebumps, you know, font. Like, I always loved that so much. I always thought that was super cool and super neat. And another FYI, A Night in Terror Tower was the very first book that I ever got. However, I did not read it right away. The very first book that I read was The Cuckoo Clock of Doom. So, interesting. But I do remember getting that book, and I remember being upset because I think I wanted like the Haunted Mask or something else. So I was kind of just like, oh, thanks, yeah, Night in Terror Tower. But I actually did end up liking the book a lot. And that's also another really brutal, you know, like that's pretty insane for a children's book. You know, you got like this fucking killer with an axe. However, I did not care much for the short. Like, this is, of the 4 of these, I don't care for this one. Alright, this one is a super popular one. This is kind of the Hollywood blockbuster Goosebumps. I love it, but it does get more attention than it deserves. It's a fantastic story, of course. Fantastic episode. Fantastic movie. Fantastic mask. But I just think there's a lot of other Goosebumps books and stories that get overshadowed by the Haunted Mask. People kind of say this is like the best, the definitive work. I wouldn't say that, but it's definitely up there. But I think more people remember the Haunted Mask for the show and not as much for the book. I actually personally really prefer the second book. There's something about it. It just does the universe justice really well. But of course, book number 11, The Haunted Mask. There's the POG. There is the VHS tape. So, there you have it. Okay, so I saved my favorite for last. So, first I'll show you the POG. So, boom! Night of the Living Dummy, of course. Of course this one would be my favorite. Number 7. Once again, the POGs are by Parachute Press Incorporated from 1995. So, there are those. And unfortunately, my favorite one is the most banged up. But let's go ahead and get this turned around here. And boom! That's beautiful. That's awesome. Once again, another one by Tim Jacobus. I guess he did a lot of the illustrations. I didn't do any kind of research on this before I came in. And actually, speaking of Parachute Press also did these. So I guess that makes sense why the POGs turned out as good as they did. Obviously, Scholastic Incorporated is the publisher for the novel. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I don't really have anything else for you. So thank you so much for watching. Like I said, this was just kind of a quick little passion project. I've been itching to talk about my Goosebumps stuff. Obviously, got a chance to talk about it. Obviously, this theme goes really great with October, but with it being May, I figured this should hold you guys over until we get to the Halloween time, the Halloween spirit. But hey, man, every day, all year round, is a good time for horror and Goosebumps and Halloween related things. But I will say Halloween and Goosebumps go together very well. So thank you, as always, for watching. This has been Jazzy Jeff with another one of my goofy Jazzy Thought segments, Goosebumps. I mean, otherwise, I could go on and on and on and talk about Goosebumps all day. But I will say they were an amazing escape from reality back in the day. They still are. I wouldn't be as who I am, and I wouldn't read as well as I do, and I definitely would not be as invested in the horror genre if it wasn't for Goosebumps. I owe many different reasons why I'm in the horror genre, but I definitely owe a lot of gratitude to the Goosebumps books and the authors. I mean the artists that did all of those covers. So, thank you for watching, and I'm out.